Hello Battle Cats players, my name is Chance and thank you for tuning in to another episode of my guide. Today we are taking a look at unit number 13, Domcat. Domcat is made available after completing Greenland in Empire of Cats Chapter 1 and is available for a purchase price of 150 cat food in the upgrade menu. Domcat is a very interesting and quite polarizing cat. A lot of people, given the right circumstances, believe that this cat is capable of doing immense damage, while others believe it kind of falls off and generally isn't the best choice in most cases. My hopes is that throughout this video, throughout discussing the pros and cons of this cat, gameplay strategies, as well as talent and NP allocation, we'll be able to get to the root of the answer ourselves, or at the very least give you enough information to make an informed decision. As a quick aside, I would strongly urge all of you after this video to check out the community tab on my channel. I'm going to be trying to incorporate viewer comments into future videos. Granted, I already have a few videos pre-rendered, so I won't be able to do it for any of those, but the community channel explains a little bit better. My hopes are that by doing this, I can help some channel members gain some recognition they deserve, whilst at the same time providing as much value as possible to the viewer yourself. So if you would like to help me with that, of course, I would greatly appreciate it. More details are in the community channel, although it is conceptually pretty simple and easy to understand. With that out of the way, however, let's take a look at Domcat's evolutions. So Domcat follows the exact same progression as all of the special cats we've discussed up until this point. So Domcat's description is a very caring office worker during the day. Bondage cat is her after hours regular, a quick attacker and strong against red enemies. The cat it walks upright, wears some sunglasses and what I presume to be a bathing suit, carries a whip, and the attack animation is to strike 3 times. At level 10, Domcat evolves into Executioner Cat, whose description reads, might not be a cat, loves violence, a quick attack, and strong against red enemies. At this point, it wears a mask that kind of resembles the Jason hockey mask, black pants and leather straps, and it carries a giant bloody axe. Still attacks in the same rough attack animation, just with a different weapon and different model. Now at level 20 or beyond, Domcat will get the level unlock, the Dom Awakens, and it will be a 2-stage level, 1 expert, 1 insane. I don't have the date and hours written down in the script because I'm an idiot, so I do apologize for that, but I'm dealing with kind of a time crunch. Just look it up on the wiki. I'll put it down beneath in the pinned comment, assuming I don't forget. If I do forget, just remind me and I'll do it really quick. And if you don't get it on the first stage, you will get it on the second stage. There's a little bit of a difficulty spike there. It should be 150 energy to do each stage. So it's not the cheapest, not the most expensive, and doing so will unlock Domcat's true form, and this is one of the more iconic cats in the game. We are looking at Dark Lazer, whose description reads, ruthlessly striking down enemies with a fluorescent bulb. This Dark Lord's quick attacks are more than a match for any red or black. This kind of looks like Darth Vader, has an eye mask and a bob haircut. Funny enough, holds a blue lightsaber and does downward slashes, but only 1 downward slash as opposed to 3 like the other previous evolutions do. It's pretty cool looking, and it's one of the, I don't know, I guess more recognizable cats. Everyone kind of knows about it, if just through the visual. Now that you have a pretty good grasp on the evolutions, let's now take a look at some rough pros and cons and get into the performance here. First and foremost, Domcat is considered to be a melee class unit. That means range of 1 to 249. And means they get up close and personal with the enemy. Under pros, high DPS in the true form, and there is a little bit contingent on this that we will get into later. Fast attack rate and short cooldown, all great things. However, the cons are a little bit longer. Single target, short range, slow movement speed, high cost, 1 knockback, and a couple of these are kind of damning. I'll get into that in a little bit here, but just know that there are some substantial downsides to this cat. The high cost is kind of whatever. The slow movement speed, while annoying if spammed consistently enough and stacked consistently enough, is a non-issue. Single target, it does suck, but it is offset by the fast attack rate. Really, the bad thing here is just the one knockback, and the short range, of course. The short range is probably Domcat's biggest limitation, simply because Battle Cats is very much a range game. Longer range units just seem to absolutely demolish shorter range ones. They just become one-sided fights, right? If you can't do damage and they can do damage to you, doesn't matter how powerful you are, given a long enough time frame, you're gonna lose. And Domcat is a pretty good example of why that is. Not the best example, it's not as bad as some of the others, and there is, once again, an interesting caveat to this that we will get into in a little bit, but just take my word up for it. Under special considerations, it's always strong against red enemies. To be strong against something means you inflict 1.5 times damage and you take half damage from it. So it's pretty good. You deal more damage, but you take less damage. Through the treasures, the fruit treasures specifically, you can get this damage bonus up to 1.8 and reduce the damage penalty to 0.4. So there is some benefit that comes from, of course, getting all of those treasures in the case of strong, which is nice. And then strong against black enemies in the true form and multi-hit in the normal and evolved form. We talked about multi-hit a little bit in previous videos. It is much better in theory than it is in practice, simply because if your first hit procs a knockback, then your other 2 hits are not going to do damage. So for that reason, I tend not to think multi-hit's all that great. Up against boss enemies, it can be pretty effective. However, most boss enemies have a pretty good range, and they also have an area attack for the most part. So Domcat, your stack is going to get wiped out pretty quick if you're using them for bossing, so just do bear that in mind. Now let's take a look at some strategy and best use cases while watching some gameplay here. First and foremost, and I cannot stress this enough, Domcat in their normal and evolved form is kind of trash. I see very little use cases for them for really any point in the game. You will almost always have better units, if not in terms of damage, certainly in terms of range and survivability. They are not a good choice to put on your general squad. The true form, however, because it is strong against both blacks and reds, it is capable, in theory, of doing absolutely massive damage to those 2 enemy types. And funny enough, that actually makes it pretty viable for kind of middle to end of Stories of Legends for the most part. There are a couple other stages in addition to that where, in theory, Domcat, or rather Dark Lazer in this case, is the way to go. There are just a lot of caveats to that. The biggest thing that holds it back is, of course, its health. It's not a very tanky unit, and that one knockback, so they just die super quick. And when you combine that with their range, which requires them to be up and personal, and the fact that many bosses and just many enemies, especially at that point in the game, have some form of area attack or another, they just get wiped out so dang quick. Fortunately, at that point in the game, money's not really an issue, and they are spammable units, so it is possible to brute force those stages. However, just bear in mind, it's not always optimal. Now, with that being said, if you do, for whatever reason, want to use Domcat, or at this point Black Lazer, of course, through the completion of Stories of Legends and into Uncanny Legends, you're going to need to invest into her talents, and you will need to invest pretty heavily to get them to a point where they're viable. There are a couple interesting talents they have access to. One in particular that makes them arguably one of the funner to use units in the game. However, how viable it is relative to everything else you'll have up until that point is up for debate. This is a very specialized DPS unit, and they are fun to use on the stages they are good at, but I wouldn't say they're good enough overall to be given a spot on your general squad at really any point. Once again, against black and red enemies, if done properly with the right cat combos, even without those cat combos, the potential DPS they can give off is massive, and certainly at the spammability and the ability to stack, there are plenty of use cases for them on specific stages, and there's an interesting argument to be made for them being one of the better 4-star DPS attackers. And I would certainly say for like mid to end of Stories of Legend, that would be true. My only caveat to that is they are very expensive to invest into and get to a point where they would be your go-to for those stages. At least that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think down beneath. Like, just any thoughts you have regarding them, of course, and their use cases. I have a lot of very cool memories with Domcat, and I've used Dark Lazer on plenty of stages to great effect. They're not a bad cat on stages that are kind of built around them. However, for the early to mid game, or I guess like the start of the mid game, I don't really see the value to putting them in your general squad or like defaulting to them for any real reason. Even as far as the normal cats are concerned, there are better alternatives for most stages than Domcat. Once you unlock their true form, once you invest into the talents, at that point it kind of becomes up for debate, but there are a lot of the crazed cats that I would make an argument are overall more useful than Domcat is. So I don't know, like as always, let me know what you think down beneath. I could very well be wrong on this, and they are capable of, in theory, producing some incredible numbers, but I just see more risk in terms of the range, in terms of the low health pool, in terms of the lack of survivability, than I see in terms of strengths. So yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents on it. Now that we've discussed at length Dom, Cat, and strategy, let's take a look at their cat combos. First up, we have Behind Closed Doors. This is a cat cannon power-up that involves Dom Cat and Bondage Cat, increases attack power of the cannon by 20%. I don't care, I don't really like these. If you like them, let me know why, but for the most part, I think cat cannon DPS combos are kind of worthless. There's just not a lot of stages they're going to make much of a difference on, and the stages that your cat cannon does make a difference on, it involves enemies that are just very fast and very weak. So even I feel like an unupgraded cannon should be able to kill them. I haven't tested that on my side, but I'm pretty sure they built the game to work that way. Up next, we have Choppers. This is a unit attack up, involves Executioner Cat and War God Keji. This increases Cat's attack power by 10%. You know, there are worse 2 cat combos out there, and an overall damage increase is certainly not a bad thing. This is more of a time saver cat combo than anything else. To be able to get more DPS out, of course, means you're able to push through enemies faster, get to that cat tower quicker, and kill it. So I think that's fine. I don't see any real inherent downside to that. Up next, we have Watch Me Whip. This is a cat cannon startup, which we haven't talked about yet. This will be the first one for that. It involves Dom Cat and Office Lady Cat, and the cat cannon gauge will be filled about 20% when you start the first stage, which is interesting in theory. I can actually see a couple of stages where this would be useful. Zombie stages are a good example of a potential use case for this. However, it's niche, and you know, if you're using Dom Cat and Office Lady Cat anyways, sure, put it in there. It's just a 2 cat combo, so it's pretty cheap, but overall I don't really see the importance of this, for lack of a better term. It's interesting. I don't know, I could be wrong. Let me know if I am down beneath. Up next, we have Masquerade. This is a knockback effect up. Knockback distance is increased by 20%. It involves the Urun Wolf, Executioner, and Evil Cat. Urun Wolf you get by default, and Executioner and Evil Cat aren't very hard to get a hold of. So there's a medium as well, which is quite nice. And, you know, to increase knockback effectiveness on some stages is pretty important. However, knockback isn't usually a game changer. Up against long range bosses, it can make a pretty big difference just because it keeps you out of their damage zone. However, in terms of most mobs, you don't really want to keep just bouncing them back. You just want to kill them as quickly as possible and plow through that line. However, I guess there are worse things to invest into than knockback. So overall, it's fine. Pretty, yeah, for like a 3 cat, medium cat combo. Urun Wolf is pretty good as well, so why not? Up next, we have Power of Darkness. This involves Dark Cat and Dark Lazer, and it's a weaken effect at medium as well. Weaken duration increased by 20%. I actually really like this. I think weaken is very often slept on in terms of an effective status effect, and relative to things like freeze and slow, there's an argument to be made that it really isn't that great. However, a lot of the cats that inflict weaken are quite spammable, so that is nice. While this cat combo is pretty good on more difficult stages when you're trying to inflict weaken, on simpler stages it often doesn't make that much of a difference, simply because a lot of the cats that inflict weaken, once again, are very spammable. So you should have a good amount of them in your lineup, and there's never really a chance for the debuff to be timed out because it's constantly being reapplied. So for that reason, I don't always see the use case for this one, but I suppose there are worse options, and if you're building around weakness in terms of your whole lineup, this is a very good cost for a medium cat combo, so I don't see why not. I think it's fine. And lastly, we have One Way Ticket to Hell. This is a strong effect up. It involves Hades the Death Dealer and Executioner. The effect of this ability is increased by 10%, so to be strong against is increased by 10%. So with this cat combo, you'll be dealing 160% damage against whatever it is the type is, and you'll be taking 0.4%. While it will be a little bit better with all the treasure fruits discovered, that should give you a general enough idea. That about sums up all of Domcat's cat combos. Now let me read you some trivia on them while I just flash you some of their stat screens. Before version 3.6 of Naiko Desenayu, Dark Lazer had an area attack. In Battle Cats, Domcat was named SM Cat, short for Sadomechanism. It was renamed to Domcat in the Battle Cats, possibly due to domination representing the only S part of S and M, the M of course being Bondage Cat. Dark Lazer is a reference to Darth Vader from Star Wars. While this may be true, I also think there's a strong correlation to Dark Helmet from the Spaceball series. However, that of course is a spoof of Darth Vader as well, so I guess it all kind of comes full circle in the end. Interestingly, the usable Dark Lazer wields a blue lightsaber, while its enemy counterpart, featured in various event stages, accurately portrays Darth Vader with the red one. Despite normal and evolved forms seemingly striking 4 times per attack, they only hit 3 times. Very, very interesting stuff. Now that we've finished up looking at some of the stats and going over the trivia, let's talk about talents. As far as available talents go, and bear in mind these are accessible at level 30, the first and most interesting is Wave Attack. This adds a 5% chance to perform a level 6 wave attack, and it improves by 1.11% per level up to 15%, which essentially means like every 1 in 6 or 7 strikes, basically. And the total cost for this is a fairly steep 165 NP. Up next, Immune to Weaken at 75 NP. Up next, Cost Down, which reduces the cost by 20, 30, or 40 cents, depending on what level you're at, up to 200, 300, and 400 cents, so 10 times, right? Based on whatever chapter you're on, of course, for a total cost of 125 NP. Then you have your standard defense and attack buff, which increase the health or attack by 8% up to level 80 for each one respectively, for a total cost of 125 NP each. So, in terms of which ones you need to invest into early, ultimately the priority should be the defense buff and the wave attack, followed up shortly by the attack buff and the cost down. The Immune to Weaken, I don't really think is worth touching ever. NP is kind of a precious resource, and this cat requires a lot of it to be viable for those 4-star stages. Really, the wave attack and the survivability are perhaps the 2 most important ones. If you're able to stack up enough Dark Lasers, the damage output can be incredible on certain stages, so it certainly is worth considering. The caveat is for the wave to proc, the cat has to make an attack, which means somebody or some enemy has to be within their melee attack zone, and it's only a chance, so it might not always happen. However, mathematically speaking, if you have 6 or 7 Dark Lasers stacked up, then in theory, every time all of them attack, at least one of them should be a wave, which is kind of cool to think about, and there are valid use cases for that. And I think that is what makes this unit one of the more fun and enjoyable units to play. However, do just bear in mind, even with all the survivability maxed out, it is still quite a squishy unit. It might be worth having a cat health up cat combo available, or one that makes strong a little bit better depending on the stage you're on. And with that should be about everything you need to know about Domcat. I think I covered everything. I will put down in the pinned comment when the cat stages are made available for Awakening Domcat, so I'll probably get on that right away here as soon as I'm done editing this audio. That being said, I apologize for there not being a video yesterday. I had like a weird thunderstorm basically over my apartment all day, and as a result I couldn't really record. It's actually still here, but I don't know, there hasn't been much thunder or lightning, just like a lot of rain. So if you can hear that in the background, I do apologize, but it is what it is and it's better than nothing. In addition to that, you'll be noticing a couple changes with the channel starting today. Different short content being released, different community posts posts being made. So just make sure to check those out as well periodically. The posts in particular, I'm really interested to see how all of that pans out. And as always, guys, thank you so much for viewing. If there's anything that I missed or overlooked or explained wrongly, please just put it down beneath in the comments so I can issue a correction in the next video, or just pin the comment. That being said, thank you so much once again, and I will see you all in the next one.